before the dust settles and the road carries us too far. Pause a second, tap like, leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Because some stories don't ask politely to be heard. They stand there, bruised and quiet, and wait to see who has the nerve to stop. This is one of those stories. Reed Holston eased the tired mule team down the main stretch of Redstone, crossing with the same measured patience he used for every task that kept his ranch from sliding into ruin. His coat was powdered the same color as the road. His beard had gone too long again, and he hadn't cared enough to trim it. His eyes, once sharp, had faded to a washed gray from years of sun and squinting, drifting over storefronts, men, and horses without catching on any of them. He didn't come to town to look at people. He came for salt, coffee, lamp oil, nails, and a new whetstone because the old one had split clean through. That was the list. In and out, no delays. The last time he'd stayed past sundown, a drunk had dragged up the war, the dead, and Reed's time as a Union scout. Reed had gone quiet and left, because there wasn't a sentence alive that could fix any of it. His wife had been gone 10 years now, buried on a hill behind the cabin with a plain cross and a stone. He'd turned himself. The ranch still breathed, barely some days, but it stood. That was the work now. Keep it standing. Mend the rails. Keep himself fed. Push the days forward in a straight line. He would have gone straight to the general store, if not for the noise, spilling out of the old livery yard. Men packed in close, some laughing, some spitting, some wearing that hollow look that shows up when boredom meets cruelty. Reed didn't slow because he wanted to. He slowed because the way narrowed with bodies, because he heard the words auction and last one left and worthless, and because his hands tightened on the reins, just enough to matter before he set the brake and climbed down. He saw her immediately. Chained to a rough-hewn post, wrists raw and reddened by iron, she stood upright. Not rigid, not slumped, just upright. Her chin stayed level. Her eyes were clear, fixed on nothing ahead of her, like she'd learned it was safer to look through men than at them. Her dress was torn, deerskin with fringe that had once been set with care, beads and feathers still clinging in places. The neckline had been ripped down far enough to bare the upper swell of her chest, and there was no effort to hide it, because there was no spare cloth, and because modesty hadn't saved her from anything yet. Her skin carried the color of the land she came from, sun-warmed copper, and the muscle along her bare arms and calves told of work and miles and a body that had learned how not to break. She was young, maybe 24. Her hair, black and long, was tangled, some of it braided, some torn loose by wind and rough hands. Men jeered. Reed could see it in the crooked pull of their mouths, the lazy lean of their bodies. She gave them nothing, not a flinch, not a sound. She ain't said a word, a man near Reed muttered, not bothering to look at him. 3 days. Others sold quick, not her. Wouldn't kneel, wouldn't cry. Just stands there, he spat. Folks say she's cursed, or stubborn, or both. Reed's jaw shifted once. He didn't answer. He stepped closer, boots sinking a fraction into the dry dirt. Her eyes moved then, settling on him. There was no plea in them. No hope, no relief. Just a quick, exact measure of who he was and whether he was danger. He knew that look. He'd worn it after the war. He still wore it some mornings when he woke and had to remind himself nothing was hunting him anymore but memory. He could walk away. He knew it. He could buy his nails and coffee and head home, fix fences, oil the lamp, sit by the fire thinking about nothing until Sunday, when he'd walk up the hill and tell the grave that nothing had changed. But he knew this too. If he left, she'd still be there when the sun went down, and someone with fewer limits would count his coins and make his choice. Reed reached inside his coat, fingers closing on folded bills and the coins he'd counted twice that morning. He faced the man running the deal. How much? His voice came out low, rough from disuse. The man blinked, surprised anyone asked. He named a number, less than what Reed carried, more than she'd earned him in 3 days. Reed didn't bargain. He put the money in the man's palm. The chains were unlocked. The weight left her wrists. She didn't rub them. She didn't move until Reed turned away. Then she followed, because standing there wasn't safer. and because every option left to her was bad, just not equally so. Reed didn't touch her, didn't steer her. He climbed onto the wagon. She climbed up after him and sat on the plank seat, hands folded in her lap, shoulders steady. She glanced at his coat, then looked away. He felt the north wind sharpening, and noticed how her torn dress would fare against it. He took off the coat and held it toward her. She stared at it, then at him, then took it, laying it across her legs without putting it on. Redstone fell behind them in boots and laughter. No one followed. The mule team found the rhythm Reed knew by heart, and neither of them spoke for miles. His thoughts circled the land, repairs waiting, feed running low, the broken hinge on the chicken coop. Winter pressing close if the sky held like this. He glanced at her wrists, skin abraded and angry. He watched her look toward the horizon, then down at her hands. She kept her face still. He wondered how long she'd been doing that. Her name, learned later, was Awanada. She'd been taken in a raid, dragged across scrub and stone, laughed at when she didn't answer, left unsold because pride doesn't bend for comfort. Her aim now was simple and hard. Stay alive without surrendering the last piece of herself. She would not kneel. She would not beg. She would not say please to men who had nothing to give. Reed's mission had been simple too. Keep the ranch breathing. Keep himself useful enough to justify another day. Remember his wife without letting the grave take what years remained. Buying her hadn't been part of that. But he knew he hadn't brought her home to own her. He knew the cabin had space for another bed. And he knew the silence there had grown too heavy to carry alone. Dusk flattened the light orange when they arrived. The fence leaned. The grass was thin. The barn door stuck unless lifted just right. He stopped by the well, climbed down. She waited, watching his hands, learning his movements. He offered a hand. She didn't take it, stepped down herself. Bare feet meeting packed dirt, pain flashing once and gone. He opened the cabin door and stepped aside, letting her see before he entered. One room, a short half-wall suggesting separation. A stove needing a new seal. A table he'd built uneven. 2 beds, his and a smaller one made when his wife got sick. He nodded to it. Yours, he said, if you want. He didn't speak rules. She stood, taking it in, the stove, the bed, the shelf with a folded shirt and basin, the shuttered window, wood smoke and oil, the faint trace of a woman's soap. Her eyes paused on a ring on the table. Reed followed her gaze, then slid it into his pocket without a word. I'll make food, he said. You can wash. Water's clean. He served stew into 2 bowls, set one near her bed, one at the table. He didn't sit across from her. She chose the floor by the fire, coat over her lap, eyes on the flames. He ate slow, listening to the tin scrape. He laid extra blankets out without comment, measured space for a divider in his head. Night settled. The lamp went dark. The fire glowed low. She lay awake. He counted knots in the beams. Neither slept. Neither left. In the morning, there would be work. They didn't know it yet, but it would become their language. For now, surviving the first night without fear or demand was enough. That was the beginning. That was the mission. Morning came thin and cold, frost biting the edges of the world. Reed woke first, as he always did, and moved with the quiet of a man who had learned not to disturb what little peace existed. Outside, he broke ice on the trough, fed the mule, scattered grain for the hens. When he turned back, he noticed the second set of tracks again. Lighter, careful, still there. Inside, Awanada stood by the window, wrapped in his coat, watching the land like someone deciding whether it could hold her weight. Reed set a tin cup of coffee near her and didn't wait for thanks. He spoke of fences and hinges and wood that needed splitting, not because she owed him work, but because the day needed shape. She listened. Then she followed him out. They worked without words. He lifted posts. She steadied wire. When a tool slipped, another hand appeared, quick and sure. By dusk, the fence stood straighter. The coop door swung clean, and the cabin felt different. Not fuller, just less. Hollow. That night, she slept on the bed. He stayed by the fire. No promises were made. No names were claimed. Only this was settled. She would stay until she chose otherwise, and he would never make her choice for her. Sometimes survival wasn't escape. Sometimes it was staying where harm was no longer required. And that was enough.